Some leaders leave footprints, others leave libraries. You're tuning into the Authors on Mission podcast, where industry giants become literacy legends. In every episode, we talk with authors who turn their brilliance into books that transform lives. I'm Danielle Hutchinson, your host and Chief Creative Officer at Authors on Mission. Welcome to your authorship experience. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Authors on Mission, the podcast committed to bringing you top-tier insights and strategies from established experts who've achieved remarkable success in their fields and wrote a book about it, too. I'm your host, Danielle Hutchinson, Chief Creative Officer at Authors on Mission, and today I'm thrilled to welcome Dr. Nicole Fleischmann, a board-certified urologist with specialty training in urogynecology and reconstructive pelvic surgery, and the author of the groundbreaking book, Second Mouth, One Woman's Journey to Decode a Hidden Language for a New Era of Women's Health. This book introduces us to a completely new way of understanding women's health, one that challenges conventional wisdom and offers hope to millions of women suffering from issues that might have been told were just part of being a woman. So, without further ado, let's see how Dr. Fleischmann's mission aligns to empower women with the knowledge about their bodies and how that helps to inspire us to become an expert in our own rights. Let's dive in. Welcome to the episode, Dr. Nicole Fleischmann. It's great to have you.
Thank you, Danielle. Very nice to be here.
It's great to welcome you on. I love welcoming on new authors and hearing what they have to say, diving into various topics. And this is one that, I will be honest, I haven't yet talked too much about here on the show. So I'm excited to learn a little bit more about it. And, and I know you have a lot of great wisdom to everybody about the writing process, in addition to everything here in your book. So let's dive on in. I was hoping you could probably just give us a little bit of an overview of, I know I gave an overview so far, but if you can offer some.
So my profession is in a field called urogynecology, which is a newer field in medicine. I would say it's been around, within the last 50 years, it's really been developed as an offshoot of urology and gynecology, because what we realized that there were these women who weren't having necessarily obstetric care, but they had a lot of other needs in the gynecologic area and in the urologic area. And the traditional male urologic pathway or just general gynecologic pathway just didn't meet their needs. So a new field was formed where we could deal with things like bladder leakage and pelvic organ prolapse, which is herniation of the bladder, and all sorts of other fun stuff that happens to us through our lives. And so we're a very specialized field where we do a lot of surgery specifically to treat these conditions and so forth. And that's what I do. I've been doing it for about 25 years, and it's a lot of training. It's over 7 years of training. And then it's an extra board certification on top of the urology board certification. So we're really like unicorns. And as women who are doing this field, if we've gone through a urology residency and then a urogyn residency, it's a lot of school, and there's not that many of us, truthfully. It's just, there's less, I think there's only about 400 board certified urologists, urogynecologists in the country. So we're kind of unicorns, and we have a very unique perspective on the world because of that, I think. And that may be what drove me to a book, maybe because it's a new field, a new profession, and that women are entering.
Yeah, I was going to say, when you're such a unicorn in that way, you have a market that needs to be filled, a question needing to be answered. And, in that way, your book offers that resolution there, filling the gap and informing everybody about it, So I can see how that drove you to it.
Yeah. And in terms of writing the book, the book was not something I ever really intended to write. I'm going to be completely honest. It was not on my to-do list. I'm very busy. I have a really busy clinical practice. I have 3 children. And the book was something that had to be written, I would say, than something I intended to write. And it really, to me, it was almost like a spiritual experience, because I really was having a lot of new ideas that I hadn't heard before, but that I knew to be true. And I wanted to be able to write it down, mostly just to organize it in my own mind. What was I thinking? Why was I thinking this? What was the proof of it? Why I had come to all these new understandings that I hadn't learned before. I needed to write it in a book, almost to organize my thoughts. It was almost a necessity. And then as the book started to evolve, I realized I was writing a book for my patients, because I was treating them in a way that other doctors weren't necessarily treating them, because I was using with them and still do a lot of techniques about body awareness, which most people who go to the urologist, they don't expect to talk to them about body awareness and posturing and breathing. But I mean, that is a huge part of my practice. And so when I was teaching people, it was like, how can I give them something to look at, to reinforce the concept? So I wrote the book for my patients. Many of them asked me to write a book. And it just became this evolution of something that I had to do, but I had no idea how to do it. I knew how to write it. I mean, I never really was a writer or considered myself to be a writer, but the words came out pretty easily. And then I had some help with editing and developmental editing from Authors on Mission, which was, I think, in a lot of ways a savior for me, because I was sort of at this place where I had written this book. I knew I wanted to put it out in the world, but I really had no idea how to do that. And every time I got on some website to look at, like, how do you get an agent? I literally shut the computer down. I was like, I can't do this. This is ridiculous. First of all, the step I'm talking about, I want everybody to know right now. Now, I don't want to wait 3 years to get something out there that is what I consider to be a public health crisis. We're talking now. Let it come out now. And the only way to do that now is through this self-publishing process. But that in and of itself was like a whole thing I just didn't even think I could handle. And so it was just kind of gratuitous that Authors on Mission approached me as they found me. I think they have an algorithm for looking at, I mean, maybe you would know more than me about people who are sort of have these, long careers, and maybe they would be interested in doing something like this. I was like, yes, let's go. Let's get this out there. And it was from then on, it was like, it just literally within months, the thing was out published. I had it in my hand. And it was like this beautiful thing just to see that I had done this. And yeah, I'm so proud of it because it was a lot of work and I really like how it came out. And yeah, it's the second mouth.
Yeah, well, first off, I want to say, thank you for sharing all that of the journey with us. And what I've noticed is that a lot of this seems to just kind of fall into place for you, like, one, the inspiration for it, two, just finding the right moments to start writing, and then also having the team by your side. And to anybody listening today who is interested in writing their book or might feel lost at any step of the process, Authors on Mission does have a very, in-depth service. Choose what you need and we're able to help you with it. But that's aside the point. We're very happy that we were able to help you with that, Nicole. But, what I kind of wanted to touch upon for our listeners today too is that, a lot of this seemed to come to you because it just had to be shared to fill that need. And a lot of it, you said, just was things you'd never heard of before. Like, for example, as I was looking through everything that you've come out with, you described a moment that you had a realization about the vagina mouth concept. It came to you in a dream, you said. I'm wondering maybe you could share a little bit about that moment and how it changed your practice and how it influenced your thinking from there.
This whole process has really been quite spiritual for me. And you have to understand where I come from. I come from the Upper West Side of New York. My parents are both Jewish and divorced. I would say, non-secular Jewish family. I mean, we all do the basics, but none of us are really religious. There was never a lot of God in my life growing up. And so I would call myself maybe an agnostic. I guess that's how I would characterize myself. And the process that started with writing this book suddenly began to tip that balance in my own world. Because what I was realizing is that things that I was understanding were coming to me, almost like they were being downloaded. I don't know how else to describe it, but I was downloading stuff that seemed to be crazy to other people. But it wasn't crazy. They were concepts that were completely safe and completely backed in science and correct concepts. But it was just a different way of looking at the female body. So nobody tells us that we have two mouths, right? That's not a concept that anybody's heard before, right? We have one mouth. But actually, in embryology, we start off with two. And our class is called deuterostome, which is a two-mouth creature. And all the animals in the animal kingdom are deuterostomes, meaning we have nervous system connections between our anus and our mouths that separate at birth. So that mouth mechanism is something that's really ingrained in our neurology, and we don't know it's there. In other words, we have the ability to move our pelvic floor as if it is the mouth, a mouth, like we can lower the jaw and close it. But that actual movement requires you to have a skill called interoception or the ability to feel your body, pay attention to the movements. And that is a very neurologically complex thing to do. It has to be taught to you. You have to be guided through it. And when you understand that you're a two-mouthed creature as a woman, not as a man. We can argue about that, but this is for women.
Understood. Yeah, I mean, first off, again, very unique concept, but something that's eye-opening for us, something for us to really immerse ourselves in and understand it. And it's so revolutionary as well. However, I think I saw that you mentioned like there is some kind of pushback about spreading this technique. Is that true? Some people thought it was a little bit, unconventional.
Well, it is unconventional because it's not really what you would expect to come to an allopathic doctor and learn. I mean, many of my techniques might be considered more ancient or ancient wisdom, but the truth is I have never been to India. I have never studied with a yogi. I don't know any of that stuff. What I'm doing is neurophysiology, okay? So I'm studying how reflexes in the body control our nervous system, and our nervous system in turn is able to control our reflexes. And it's a real balance in the system that is something that's under our control. But none of us really learn to control it properly because none of us learn to breathe properly. And that's really what this book is about. It's about these basic life skills, this embodied wisdom, like how do you breathe? How do you pee? What are you doing during these actions? Because most of us are not taking the time to think about how does air enter my body? What are the muscles that I move? How do I feel air move through my body? It turns out as human beings, it's necessary for us to do that. It's part of our health. Because if we don't do that, we are disconnected from our bodies. We have what I consider to be a nervous system disconnection, and we call it pelvic floor dysfunction. And it affects almost every woman on the planet. That's the truth. And men too. I don't want to leave men out of this because they're very much involved in this too. But for women with pelvic floor dysfunction, which in my definition is a nervous system disconnection, where your brain does not understand how to move the lower part of your body properly or feel it, women have more problems related to it because, first of all, we're very stressed as a gender. I don't know if you say gender, sex, whatever it is. We are more stressed, and the studies show that. Women are 5 times more anxiety disorders than men. We also deliver babies, which without pelvic floor awareness destroys our pelvic floor. Those are the things that separate women from men when it comes to pelvic floor disorders. It's not that men don't have it. It's just that it doesn't get them as much. It gets them too. It gets them too, but it doesn't get them as much as it gets us.
Okay, yeah, understood. Well, being that you said so many of us are, affected by this, I'm sure your book does offer some very practical guidance for how we can achieve this and also kind of
how we can overcome it, how we can build the proper mind-body connection to be able to control the muscles on the other side of our body so they're not reflexive. Yes, the book is about that and how you do that and why you need to do that and what it actually means to do that.
Right, and you challenge kind of the more conventional approaches like Kegel exercises, for example.
I do.
Why do you believe these are not very good for us? Why are they harmful for women?
There are so many ways for you to answer that question. When everybody asks me that question, because I get that question a lot, I'm very vocal about how I feel about tightening exercises. Our concept of the pelvic floor is not correct, okay? We don't understand that it's a mouth that opens. And because that paradigm has not been built into us, we even have a question like, if you understand the paradigm shift of the second mouth, you wouldn't even ask me why are Kegels not good for us. You would just know. But if you don't understand the paradigm shift, then you ask the question, and I'll answer in this way. Tightening our pelvic floor through a Kegel is not the same as strengthening. The muscles that we use in a Kegel, which is our pelvic floor muscles or our levator muscles, those are accessory muscles for urinary continence. They're not the main muscle. The main muscle is a tiny muscle in our urethra or tube, which is called a sphincter. Many of us have heard of a sphincter. So the sphincter is a circular muscle that stays tight and closed. And when we want to pee, we open it. And that ability to open it starts the neurologic process of peeing. Now, if we don't open our sphincter when we're peeing, if we just push through it, instead of opening it, we start to weaken the sphincter. It starts to tire out, get damaged, you just close it well, it misaligns, especially after childbirth. But this is the main muscle of continence. The pelvic floor muscles are out here. And what we're doing is we're strengthening these muscles so that we can tighten around the sphincter to compress it. But the problem is that these muscles are not our continence muscles. These are like our emergency muscles, like when we cough, they come in to help us. But these muscles are being used by almost all of us as our continence muscles. We are literally tightening them all day long, and most of us are not aware of it. Okay? We are literally walking around what I call, I don't know if I can say this, vagina clenching all day. I don't want to be, I'm very graphic in how I talk about things.
Hey, go for it.
Okay, so we walk around vagina and butt clenching all day, thinking that these are our continence muscles. And when we do Kegels exercises, we're just trying to strengthen those. But we cannot strengthen our sphincter with those exercises. All we do is compress it, and it starts to weaken it more. And then we come to rely on these muscles all the time, because if we let go for a second, we'll pee on the floor. That's why Kegels are bad. You may be able to get away with them holding for you when you're young, but wait till you're old. The whole system breaks down. We have to learn functional urination, which means we have to learn how to open our sphincter on the toilet. We can't just push through it and let the bladder empty that way. Almost all women are doing that, and most of us are not aware of it. So when I say a public health crisis, I'm like, you know what? If every woman on the planet is pushing out her urine instead of opening her bottom, and it's causing health problems, let's talk about this. And even if I'm wrong, even if it's not every single woman on the planet, it's a lot. It's enough for me to say, hey, let's stop talking about tightening. Let's stop talking about Kegeling. Let's really understand the neurophysiology of what's going on. Let's not keep putting out these old ways of thinking about things, because it's harming people. Kegels are harmful to people for this reason. Okay?
Yeah. I mean, I can see how it's something that no one's even aware of, and it's just harming them every single day. And, you mentioned that a lot of these things are just very misunderstood too. But, the good thing is that, by reading your book, you can become more aware of it and kind of embody these practices. For example, I know you mentioned the sniff enhanced breathing technique as one of the more proper ways. I'm wondering, would you mind giving our listeners a little sneak peek about what they might be if they're interested?
So I don't mind giving listeners anything. For me, I'm out on TikTok talking about this stuff. And I'm a 54-year-old woman, and TikTok is really not my comfort zone. I'm not going to lie. I don't like social media. I actually hate it. I don't know how to use it. I'm totally inept. I have 3 kids. They try to help. I have a lot of young colleagues who work with me in the OR, and they're always trying to, I'm like, what do I do? Did I post it? They're like, yes, you posted it. It's really, I find the whole thing scary. But I'm out there talking about how to not push out your pee, how to use your breath to pee, how to coordinate your breath with your urine flow and with your stool, because that coordination is necessary for functional evacuation. If you are not breathing while you're peeing and breathing functionally, so what does that mean? You have to use your diaphragm. And the diaphragm is a little muscle right under our bra strap. I can show it to you on me. It's right under here, okay? And that muscle is your breathing muscle. The problem is most of us are not using it. We are being really lazy with the diaphragm. We are not activating it at all. And the reason is because we're sucking in our stomachs all day. And this is another public health crisis that I would like to get out there, because sucking in the stomach is not part of the human design. All right? So when you put your finger right under your rib cage and you take a quick sniff through your nose, like just a sniff, just use your nose, not your chest. See if you can do that, Danielle. Do you feel your diaphragm pop out?
Yeah.
Yes. Just take a sniff. Close your mouth. Yes. Don't move your head. Just keep your body still and sniff. Yes. Don't pop. Don't use your chest. See how you're using your chest? See, this is like, listen. This is it. This is what I'm talking. This is the neurophysiology. And listen, I stop people in the street and do this, so you're no different. Okay?
Here we go.
Just relax everything. Relax your abdomen and just take a quick sniff through your nose. Yeah, it should sound like snot. You feel your belly pop out?
Yeah.
Okay. That's how you engage your diaphragm.
Okay.
That is the only way to engage your diaphragm, which means every breath you take starts with a sniff. So put your finger under your nose. This is a good one.
Okay.
And just relax everything and smell your finger. You feel the air go down? Do you feel it? Feel your core expand with air. That's how you pee. It's a very simple idea. So look, I could tell you this in 1,000 words and I could write 10 books about it. But nothing is going to make you understand what I'm talking about more than you putting your finger under your nose and smelling and feeling the second mouth open. Because that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about a process. We're not talking about data here. We're not talking about randomized controlled studies. That's my world. And I can't describe this like that. This is embodied awareness, that we open our bottoms with that breath. And that has to happen on a toilet when we urinate. And this is what the book is about. If I could have not written a book and gotten this idea out there, it would have been better for me. But no, I did write the book and I think it's helpful.
No, I mean, I totally agree. I do think sort of like that in-person practice is also a whole nother thing. Because if you had written that down, like, put your finger under your nose, I'd be sitting there reading my book, like trying to practice
It's
that.
in there. It's in there. And different things like that are in there so people can wake up to these inner body processes. Yeah. As you start to realize that your breath is how you communicate with your body. And it's not your chest. See, it's not the breathing with the chest that communicates with the body. We have to understand that we're lower half breathers and that we're diaphragm breathers. As a species, we are. Every animal on the planet is. So when we leave our diaphragm out of our general breathing habits, we start to get sick. Maybe not when we're young, but when we're old. Because our breath is how it enters our body is really important for our neurophysiology. It regulates our nervous system. It creates blood flow to these areas. And so when we leave our diaphragm out of our breath and only breathe with our upper halves, we're getting sick. And nobody's telling us that. I mean, you hear it if you look for the information, you can, but no one says mouth breathing is going to kill you. Did you know if you mouth breathe, you're going to be incontinent? Nobody's telling us in those words. And I think we need to hear that as women. We just need to hear that because there's too much information out there that doesn't make any sense. This makes sense. If you mouth breathe, you are going to be incontinent or you're going to have problems with your urinary tract, especially with AIDS. The only way to oxygenate the lower half of your body is through your nose. This is neurophysiology. The diaphragm is the only thing that brings oxygen and blood flow to the lower half of your body. If you're leaving your diaphragm out of it, you're going to become incontinent. These are just very simple principles that no one is telling us. So I am screaming it.
Yeah, and what better way to scream it than by putting it into your book and getting it out there.
Going on podcasts.
Going on podcasts, yeah.
Sounding crazy, but I don't even care because I'm right. And I know that. So it's just like this, I need to build awareness on this.
Yeah, no, and for anybody listening today, if you also have a cause that, you need to get out there and really spread, writing a book is the best way to do it. Because, all of your thoughts are there on the page. You're able to support it with case studies, examples, maybe even statistics, right? And that's exactly sort of what Nicole did. In addition to that, also the practical, actionable practices, for example, breathing techniques and all that, things that we can really benefit from. So
yeah, it felt very good to write it. It felt like I was doing something because one of the worst things about seeing something in everybody and knowing that you have a solution is like, you just feel like you want to blow up with information. I was literally stopping people in the street. It was getting crazy. So I had to say, let me just put it in a book. So I don't act so nuts,
Yeah, well, hey, I mean, it's, again, the best way to do it, the best way to get it out there and to try to teach people and help them. That being said, I'm sure there had to be a lot of thought into what was put into the book in order to make sure that the message resonated, that it was clear, that it wasn't too technical. I'm wondering if you could share a little bit about the process it took for you to write the book. I mean, I know you wrote it on your own, but was there a certain amount of, I guess, research outside of your practice for writing the book, or did it mainly come from what you've already known, I guess I could say?
So I will tell you that I have done a lot of research. I have spent thousands of hours reading research on this book. But when I wrote the book, I did not want it to be a research-oriented book. That I didn't think that would work. So what I did was I didn't want to have a lot of scientific citations. Because I've seen books like that and I think they're kind of boring. It's not, I didn't want to get a message out in a boring way. So I wrote it in the form of a novel about my office hours so that you could look at this through my eyes. And I do back it up with research. I'll mention it here and there, but I don't think that people need to hear this in data, although this is scientifically perfect. It's in the basic science literature, absolutely supports the neurophysiology of what I'm saying. And actually the current things like Kegels exercises and sucking your stomach, they don't support that. Core strain through sucking in instead of allowing muscles to move out. Understanding that we're straight spine, belly out creatures and not straight spine, flat belly creatures. None of us are. If your belly's flat, you're sucking it in. Pay attention. Don't allow that to happen because you're suffocating your organs. Like this type of stuff, I'm not going to find randomized controlled studies on. So I needed to put my ideas out there and back them up in neuroscience and basic science where it is backed up. But I didn't want to bore people either. So I found the most basic ways I could say these things so that my girlfriend could understand. So my daughter understands. And that's how I wrote it. I was talking to young people in this book because I got to tell you, I have a lot of older people in my practice. I have a lot of my age and older, and I have a lot of young people too, but I don't really care about the older people as much. I don't want to say that in a negative way, but it's too late for us. It really is. These pathways have been so solidified in us for so many years, it's almost too late to turn around. But I want the young people to hear this because they have neuroplasticity, they have estrogen, they have all these things that will help them understand these processes and fix them because they're young. By the time we're old, it's too late for us. We've already calcified. I know it's sad, but it's the truth.
No, that's really sad to hear.
Very sad.
I wonder if perhaps there would be any techniques for somebody who was a little bit older to reverse it or to help, but I guess...
Yes, there is. I want you to know there is. I do. Okay. I never tell anybody this is not reversible. It's always reversible. It's just harder. And your motivation is going to be key. And your cognitive abilities are key. So like if you have cognitive decline at an older age, I cannot teach you sniff enhanced respiration because it's too cognitively difficult. You have to be able, to pay attention to the upper half and the lower half of your body at the same time. If you have attention deficit problems, and that also, attentional problems happen as we get older too, and anxiety and stress. So, in the older years, we just can't focus enough to be able to suppress reflexes in our body that we're trying to suppress. But as a kid, we can do it. But if you're very motivated, and you're cognitively intact and you don't have a lot of medical problems, you're taking good care of yourself most of your life, yes, you can turn it around. You really can. And I work with a lot. Listen, I might tell you that I don't care about older people. That's my practice. All day long, I'm teaching older people how to breathe. And they're like, wait a second. How come nobody else told me this before? I've had COPD for years. How come nobody told me to snip out my diaphragm? I was like, listen, I know it's awful that you haven't been taught this. I really wish your pulmonologist would have just checked to see if you could diaphragm breathe, but he probably doesn't know how to do it either. That's the problem. Your pulmonologist is sucking in his stomach too. So we're all in this pickle. This is a human species pickle. And you just have to wake up. You just have to wake up.
Yeah, I mean, what better way to make everybody wake up by slapping a book down in front of them and saying, hey, here's all the facts right here, written in a very relatable manner too, as if you're talking to a friend or a peer. Kind of branching off that, actually, I'm wondering, can you offer any tips to our audience about taking such technical concepts and weaving it into a whole other format while still staying true to the facts themselves? What was that process like for you?
I toyed with so many different ways of doing this. What I was trying to do was talk about myself because I do put a lot of myself in the book. When you're trying to relate embodied knowledge to people, you have to talk about yourself because I wouldn't understand this stuff. And I always say this to my patients. I wouldn't understand this stuff if I didn't feel it in my own body. And I also wouldn't tell you to do anything that I don't do all the time. So this is, by my telling you that you actually have to pay attention to how you breathe, pee, and poop, and you have to govern those mechanisms so that they go normally in a coordinated way, and you're not clamping while you're peeing or, sucking in while you're breathing. I pay attention to that. Do I do it? Of course I do it. I'm always sucking in my belly. I always find myself holding it. I always catch myself in the action, but I'm aware of it now. And when I'm aware of it, I know how to regulate it and take it down. So it's a process where you learn how to talk to your body, you learn how to deal with the reactivity of your body. And I couldn't do that if I didn't feel it myself. And I couldn't do that if I didn't fix things in my own body. So, I'll tell you, you said I reach a lot of resistance. I do reach resistance, but not in the sense that people aren't thinking, and no one says this is not correct or I don't understand this. They do, because everybody I talk to about this totally gets it. They know. It's just they don't know how to fit it into their world. But some people do resist immediately because it goes against everything they've ever known. And that's hard. It's like such a dissonance in there. When I tell you, don't do Kegels exercises, like, wait, I've been doing that for 50 years. Or don't suck in your belly. Well, my spine doctor told me that stabilizes my core. My mother told me to suck it in. I'm telling you to do the opposite of everything you've ever learned. Okay. That's the resistance, because not everybody wants to entertain that. And the immediate thing is, no, go away. You're crazy. If I did fix 50 years of chronic constipation, I mean, bad in myself, 50 years of struggling with that. And now it's 100% normal. See, when things get hard for me, I have a very easy cue that keeps me going because I know I fixed it. And I want everybody to fix that because I'm very dysfunctional. I know that. I've been dysfunctional from an early age, body dysfunction, And so I understand what it means to feel disconnected in my body and to live outside the body and to, not think about my body or not govern how my body is behaving. I understand that. And so now that I know what it's like to be connected to my body and how good it feels to know how to breathe properly, how to oxygenate properly, I go every time there's resistance, I push through. And it's a lot of strength to do that because, when you're with a patient who doesn't want to hear new ideas, you have to push. And not everybody's willing to do that. But because I know I'm right, because I know I have certainty, I do push through resistance. And now I don't see it as resistance anymore. I just see like everybody's a child and you just got to educate them. That's how I look at people now.
Yeah, well, it is a good way to look at it because, nobody, would have known about this without the book. And then this all kind of is guiding them to, really understand it and put it into practice as well. So, I think for anybody listening today, these are all amazing tips that you can also use, especially when taking such complex topics and putting it into a more, readable format, of course. That being said, I'm wondering, you've written this book, you've had, very successful practice. What's next for you? Have you have any other future writing projects, perhaps any other aspects of women's health that you feel, you might want to be embodying? What's next on your radar?
I don't know.
Not yet.
So yeah,
continue podcasting, right? Spreading the word.
I do have a lot of things that I'm working on. I'm working on a medical device, for instance, to help with the urethral injections, because I think this is in the book. This is one of the ways that I came to understand all these principles. So I was doing urethral injections on women for stress incontinence. That's leakage when you cough and sneeze. So I was tightening their sphincters with a gel injection. Very safe, which is why I love it. It's not surgery, and it's really like a quick thing to do. But the problem was I noticed that people were pushing out the gel I was injecting. They were just pushing it out. Like I would inject it, and 5 minutes later, when they went to the toilet, they bared down and out it came. That's when I started understanding that all women were pushing to pee. And they were unaware of it. Some of them were, some of them weren't. But it's just not how you're supposed to pee. And we're all doing it since early childhood. So that's how it all started. I've been building a device to help me facilitate that injection. And, one of the things is that if we do start injecting this area of the body, which does work great, women do need to understand these principles. You have to know how to open your bottom to pee. Can't keep a closed bottom and push through your sphincter. This is childish. This is what children do. And you have to understand that before you can get an injection. So for me, it's about treating women, treating their leakage problems. I love clinical practice. I want to facilitate that. but I also want things done a little differently. Not just for me and my practice, but I want all of us to do things differently.
Well, that's an amazing piece of advice to kind of hold on to today, is to do things differently. You know,
Mm-hmm.
keep following the same patterns as everybody, whether it be in your any aspect of life, or, you know, when we go into the bathroom as well, or even if you're practicing these, you know, breathing, everything along those lines. So amazing tip right there. And, you know, I'm wondering, as we begin to sort of come to the end of our conversation, do you have any other last bits of advice for the authors out there in terms of the writing process? And, you know, perhaps they also have either a challenging topic to cover or one that is very technical. Maybe they're having trouble coming up with stories that you have an amazing talent at doing as well. Any last bits of advice to leave us with today?
Look, I think that if you feel like you have a book in you, if you have something to say, or if you just want to organize your thoughts or reflect on your life, whatever it is, I think it's a great thing to do. And, you know, even though I had come with a full manuscript because I had started the process before, I think that if you just have the will, there's all these people out there that can sort of help you do this. It's so that even if you have a really busy clinical practice, or maybe you're not a doctor, maybe you're real estate agent, I don't know, you could be anything. But if you don't have time to write a book, but you have the ideas and you want things documented, or you want to say something, you have something to teach. And most of us do have something to teach if we've been doing something for, 25 years. I mean, unless you're sleeping through your career, you have to have learned something that maybe you didn't know when you started, and maybe you want everybody in your field to know. You don't have to spend a lot of time. I mean, I don't know what it's like to have an angel writer because I didn't have one, but that was an option. I wouldn't hesitate. I'm so proud of this book. I'm so proud of what I did. I just think it's a great thing to do. I would always encourage people.
You will always be proud of yourself. I mean, you did an amazing job of, again, that complicated topic, one that not many people are aware of, but you were able to present it in such a clear manner. The stories are excellent. The examples as well. So, yeah, to anybody listening,
it was fun, and I'm comic. I really am. I mean, I see this as a comedy and a tragedy. So the characters in the book are all fictionalized. They're not. They're conglomerations of many of the patients I've had over the years, but none of them are like an actual real patient. So, but I had a lot of fun putting these characters together and figuring out what they were like. It's like a passion project. It's fun.
Yeah, well, I mean, as long as you're having fun with it and you love what you're doing, you never work a day in your life. That's what everybody says, right?
Exactly, Danielle.
Writing process is just a breeze when you're so passionate about it. And
I am glad it's over. Can I say that? I am glad it's over. I'm not going to say that I would never do it again, but that was a lot of work. A lot of work.
Yeah, well, it's a little bit of a commitment for sure. For anybody thinking about writing a book, that is something to keep in mind. But especially when you work with, for example, an angel writer, Authors on a Mission, or any other support service, we kind of take a little bit of the pressure off your hands. So hopefully, for us, we were able to alleviate the editing process.
Yeah. I mean, once I signed on, it was all the stress was off. That was the nicest part.
Yeah. It makes sense too. Like, if they don't want to write it like you did, then we also are able to help kind of take that off your hands, free up your schedule, and also ensuring that it's exactly what you're looking for, your right voice, all that. But again, aside the fact from that, you've offered some really incredible wisdom with that. I think that's something that everybody can kind of go off the podcast today, do a little bit of homework and practice it themselves. And if they are interested in picking up the book or learning more about your theories and what you do, where can they find you?
So my book is called The Second Mouth. It's on Amazon and I think a lot of the other, online bookstores. I'm starting to go on social media because I have to, and it's really hard for me. So you can find me on all these platforms, Dr. Nicole Fleischmann. And I'm always open to comments or questions. I also have a website, thesecondmouthbook.com.
Okay, well, there we go. And we're going to have all of those links right in the description box of this podcast. So if you're listening today, you can go ahead and just click the link right there and check it out. It's always good to give it a look and, really even take it home, open it up, and learn from it. Because, again, there's practical exercises that you saw me demonstrating earlier, along with many others as well. So,
yes. And if I could just say one more thing. If this helps you, if this is something that works for you, if this is something you understand, I would really appreciate it if you would teach it to others. It's really hard to teach people embodied awareness, but it's the secret to health. And if you get it and it's helped you, if you understand that the sniff is what starts your breath and lower half breathing is okay, you know what that means, teach it to your children, teach it to your friends, teach it to you can fix so many people's problems with this understanding.
Got it. Yeah, keep spreading the word, everybody,
Spread the word. Yeah. I mean, this is like a good thing to learn. I
agree. I mean, it's a, I guess you could say a not pandemic, but what was that phrase used again? Chronic condition.
An epidemic?
Epidemic. There we go.
Or a global health crisis of not knowing how to breathe.
Yeah.
I use lots of big dramatic words, but I really believe that. So, I don't feel like I'm being dramatic at all. I feel like I'm just saying it like it is.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only way to get it across, right? You have to be blunt and say, this is the problem. We have to address it. We have to solve.
Yes. Clarity is very important. As soon as I start mincing words or using words that nobody understands, the message is lost. So I'm very clear, and I think we all need to learn this for our health.
Understood. Well, I agree wholeheartedly. I think our audience today also would agree, and that they're able to take out your book now and check it out and practice themselves and spread the word. So with that, everybody, that brings us to the end of today's episode of Authors on Mission with Dr. Nicole Fleischmann, author of The Second Mouth. It really was an illuminating conversation about the topic that affects just so many women, but has remained shrouded in misconception and silence for so long. And Dr. Fleischmann is opening that door for us. She's revolutionizing it. So if you found value in today's discussion, I encourage you to pick up a copy and share this episode with somebody who might benefit from empowering yourself with the knowledge that is your own right. So again, thank you for being a part of the episode, and have an amazing day. Thanks for joining us again, Dr. Fleischmann.
Thank you, Danielle. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. And to all of our listeners, keep reading, keep inspiring, and keep leading. We'll see you next time. Bye. This is Danielle Hutchinson reminding you that somewhere, someone needs the book that only you can write. Visit authorsonmission.com to start your legacy. Until next time, keep leading, keep inspiring, and keep thinking in chapters. Have a great day.